Good afternoon. I'm so glad to join you today for the U.S. Pro Bono Summit. My thanks to Taproot Foundation for bringing us together. I'm Dana Textoris, CEO of Grants Plus, and I'm really pleased to be here to share our team's insights in this session, Boldly Going Nowhere: Why Sugarcoating Our Stories is Harming the Nonprofit Sector and How to Stop It. Grants Plus is a fundraising consulting firm focused exclusively on helping nonprofit organizations win grant funding. We've worked with many hundreds of organizations across the country, and that means we've seen many thousands of grant applications, giving us a vivid look at what we have seen is a problem in our sector. This problem is a tendency towards sugarcoating, an oversweetening of nonprofit organizations' stories, their needs, their challenges in their communications and relationships with funders. The outcome of this is a dishonesty and a disconnect between organizations and their funders that we believe keeps nonprofits from securing the funds they need to fulfill their missions. Today, I'm going to discuss why sugarcoating happens, examples of sugarcoating so that we can be alert to spot them, and finally, the courageous choices that we encourage nonprofits to make to disrupt sugarcoating and instead tip their dynamics with funders towards greater honesty and partnership. So why does sugarcoating happen? Because even though grant making is the business of giving funds to help nonprofits solve challenges, many nonprofits know this is a tricky game. It's a game in which funders are making the decisions. They hold all the cards. They make all the rules about how and when and how much they're going to give and to which organizations. This makes this an inherently imbalanced relationship between grant seekers and grant makers. And in this game, not only do funders control the board, but not all organizations have the same advantages. And this leaves many nonprofits in a position to do what it takes to improve their chances of winning, including this tendency towards sugarcoating. So let's take a look at what sugarcoating looks like. One of the most pervasive examples of sugarcoating is the way that nonprofits can obscure their realities and diminish the challenges that they're facing. When they're interacting with a funder or preparing a grant proposal, it's easy to understand why nonprofit leaders can feel a hyper-consciousness not to disclose too much about their challenges in a way that they worry might damage the funder's confidence and their ability to fulfill what they're requesting. This can also look like oversimplifying problems, giving the illusion that whatever challenge the organization is addressing can be neatly tied up in a bow at the end of the grant period. The strongest impulse to sugarcoating that we see can happen when reporting back to funders about how funds were used. Out of a fear of repercussions, nonprofits can end up overinflating their outcomes, downplaying something that might have gone wrong or off course, and ultimately shying away from describing how the progress has actually unearthed more complications than when they got started. Of course, papering over problems is dangerous because it's only by getting to the issues honestly that organizations and foundations can do what they've come together to do, which is to understand what's not working and take steps together towards effective solutions. A second way that nonprofits can tend towards sugarcoating is hiding the true costs of what it takes to meet their missions. We all know what nonprofits really need most is flexible, unrestricted funding. But there are many funders who are explicit that they won't make general operating support grants. We saw this shift a little bit during the start of the pandemic when funders launched emergency grant programs across the country. And a part of this new relationship that they were having with nonprofits was to ask them, what do you need most? And this questioning opened up new safe space where many nonprofits felt they were able to describe what they needed, and then they were met with flexible funding that allowed them to address needs for staffing, existing programs, and also overhead. What we're seeing now is something of a return to business as usual. And unfortunately, it's not clear that grants for general operating is going to be the new norm, at least not without some advocacy and further conversation between nonprofits and funders. For now, nonprofits are back in this position of hiding and downplaying the funding they need most, and instead they're morphing requests to fit the format the funders want. And so often that's what's new and shiny: innovation, neatly packaged projects. This ends up being dangerous when nonprofits find themselves chasing funding and they're drifting from their missions over time. So, take the example of an organization that knows that the most effective way to bring community members in the door to experience their services is to offer nourishment, free food. It's what they know they need most for their program, but the funders they're approaching don't want to fund something as basic, as unexciting as food. As a result, this critical programmatic component is either eliminated and the program ends up being less successful, or the staff of the organization expend their valuable time and energy hunting down other resources to resource this food, and that takes them away from the service deployment that was the point in the first place. Now, this example isn't only one of sugarcoating, but it can also be evidence of performative philanthropy, in which the funder is more concerned with their impact and priorities than that of the organization they're supporting. A third demonstration of sugarcoating is a traditional and very familiar fundraising technique. Make the donor the center and the hero of the story. Because of you, funder, we are saved. But a danger of the donor as hero narrative is that it can overinflate the role of the funder, as well as the expectations of what that funding can truly accomplish. I think if we look at the messaging of gratitude that we often see expressed in communications with funders, can tend to be a bit of an exaggeration. Let's be honest, that $10,000 grant probably didn't really solve whatever big picture problem your nonprofit exists to address. And yet, many nonprofits feel they need to imply that the grant has changed everything. In reality, we can mostly hope that it's moved the needle a little. The other danger of overglorifying funders is that it's crowding out the voices and stories of other heroes. And this includes hardworking staff, dedicated pro bono volunteers, and community participants. Altogether, these acts of sugarcoating perpetuate a dishonesty between grantors and grantees that is ultimately prohibiting true partnership. We advise you to watch out for these sugarcoating pitfalls and instead take some courageous steps with funders. First, instead of obscuring realities, lean into describing challenges with funders, those who will join you in finding and funding solutions. Of course, start with having more honest conversations with your current funders, those already in your corner, who hopefully have a higher tolerance to engage in the kinds of challenges that you're facing. From there, build a grant-seeking strategy around your organization's priorities. What it's already identified are the primary challenges it's addressing, and not just what your programming does. This may require research to hone in on the right funders and a funder cultivation relationship plan that will help you find and create those openings to engage in honest dialogue with funders who demonstrate an openness to having conversation. And consider something that's a little bit more difficult, which is the idea that you may be okay losing funders who hold your organization to impossible expectations, where you're jumping through hoops and they're not demonstrating they're ready to join you and leveraging the lessons of your challenges as much as your successes. Next, instead of hiding costs, share real needs with funders, including making the case for flexible funding. First, let's start publicly acknowledging the funders who do give your organization unrestricted, flexible support. Let's celebrate that until it becomes the norm. Start that but stop contributing to a mindset that nonprofits ought to operate on thin margins. Don't give admin to program ratios. Stop celebrating such high percentages of your donations that are going to programming. Stop segmenting out how dollars are being used altogether and instead recruit trust that your organization is making good decisions with the funds that you're being given. These are principles that you can learn more about by visiting the community-centric-fundraising.org website. We also recommend that you invest in a strong general operating proposal, one that is in the present tense about what you're already doing, not where your mission is creeping to chase dollars that are available. What to share in this general operating proposal is the case that it's the flexible funding itself that is positioning your organization to be an anchor, one with sound infrastructure, with stable staffing, and appropriate technology so that you can reliably produce needed results. Lastly, instead of glorifying funders, make room for other heroes. Make your gratitude proportional to the grant. How? By being more specific rather than being vague about what the grant accomplished. That will make more room for the voices of the communities you serve and to champion them as the protagonist of your story. So often, what ends up happening with the donor as hero narrative is a flip, that the communities being helped are helpless, hopeless. This story then makes no room for their agency. It ignores their own efforts to engage with services and propel their own trajectories forward. When we're championing these community heroes, use person-centered language and avoid euphemisms that obscure the complexity of their circumstances. Of course, this work must start by making room to solicit input from your community participants, to understand how systemic challenges are manifesting in their lives, and to engage their involvement in your mission deployment. We can do better to make those who are engaging in our organizations and missions the heroes of their own story. All in all, if we are all more honest in our communications and strive towards more truthful relationships, I believe that ultimately we can shift dynamics and make this a movement where relationships between grantors and grantees are more balanced. And ultimately, we all get to where we want to go, which is to see more impact in our communities. I wish you good luck in all of your grant-seeking endeavors and hope that your experience is less sugary, but a lot more sweet.